I always knew the moment woke San Francisco-based social media companies thought they should dictate what politicians had a voice on their platforms was the start of an epic disaster for democracy. This week, there has been one political organisation and one politician I've wanted to hear from most. Some would argue both should be silenced forevermore online. The political organisation is the dastardly Taliban, trying to unconvincingly assure the world they're no longer the barbaric and backward rapists, terrorists and beheaders they once were. And the politician is Donald Trump, the former US president, who made the decision to fully withdraw from Afghanistan but wasn't given the democratic mandate to see it through and has been highly critical of Joe Biden's delivery. The great irony is that on Twitter, it's the despotic Taliban who are allowed that voice and Mr. Trump who remains silenced. If one decision shames the hypocritical censorship of social media titans, it's this one. Trump, you'll remember, stands accused of encouraging what amounted to, let's be honest, a violent protest in Washington, D.C. The Taliban routinely murders anyone who opposes Sharia law, chops the hands off shoplifters, and keeps 12-year-old girls as sex slaves. Twitter has said it will remain vigilant when it comes to policing the Taliban online. But what on earth does that mean? And what right does Twitter have to decide that a democratically elected former president in Donald Trump must be shut down forevermore because its lefty staff members don't agree with his approach, while bad actors like the Taliban can keep on tweeting their propaganda? At the moment, that propaganda is in the form of this bloke, Zabihullah Mujahid, who is branded on the platform as the official spokesman of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. He currently has 320,000 followers, but it's growing by the day, you know. Meanwhile, Trump has been largely ignored by the US media, being forced to issue his response during interviews on Fox News.
It's a terrible time for our country. I don't think in all of the years our country has ever been so humiliated. I don't know, would you call it a military defeat or a psychological defeat? There's never been anything like what's happened here. I looked at that big monster cargo plane yesterday with people grabbing the side and trying to get flown out of Afghanistan because of their fear, their incredible fear, and they're blowing off the plane from 2,000 feet up in the air. It's nobody's ever seen anything like that. That blows the helicopters in Vietnam away. That's not even a contest. This has been the most humiliating period of time I've ever seen.
Twitter and other social media companies have no right to police the internet based on their own ideology. So if they're going to allow the Taliban a platform to spread what is obvious misinformation, then they absolutely have no excuse not to immediately reinstate Donald Trump. The calamity in Afghanistan shames the current US president, who has largely remained in his bunker at Camp David on holiday. Joe Biden's decision looks even more disastrous by the day, given the advice he was being given in the run-up to the withdrawal. For example, even the liberal New York Times front page today was contradicting Biden. Reports warned of rapid collapse. And the New York Times reported classified assessments by American spy agencies over the summer painted an increasingly grim picture of the prospect of a Taliban takeover of Afghanistan and warned of the rapid collapse of the Afghan military. By July, many intelligence reports grew more pessimistic, questioning whether any Afghan security forces would muster serious resistance and whether the government could hold on. The Wall Street Journal, meanwhile, reports today that generals and diplomats delivered Biden similar warnings. For example, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Army General Mark Milley, wanted Biden to keep a small force of 2,500 troops while seeking an Afghan peace agreement. Biden ignored them all. And as a result, his international reputation is rightly now in tatters. Today's Afghanistan debate at Westminster, which saw MPs recalled to Parliament, was a largely fruitless affair. Lots of hand-wringing, lots of what might have been, but other than a commitment to take in 20,000 Afghan refugees, no vote, no conclusions, and no reason for much hope. So I'm going to be honest with you, I don't want to play you the Prime Minister tonight, or the Foreign Secretary, or the Leader of no opposition. But I am going to play you a man who I think it's important that we hear from, Tom Tugendhat. He's the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee. But far more importantly, in the context of today's debate, he served in Afghanistan. And Tom Tugendhat gave a powerful, raw and devastating account of the fall of that country that brought a lump to my throat and left a feeling of despair about what's happened this past week.
Let's stop talking about forever wars. Let's recognise that forever peace is bought not cheaply, but hard, through determination and the will to endure. And that the tragedy of Afghanistan is that we're swapping that patient achievement for a second fire and a second war. Now we need to turn our attention to those who are in desperate need, supporting the UNHCR, the World Food Programme, and so many other organisations who can do so much for people in the region. Yes, supporting refugees, of course I support refugees, though I'm not going to get into the political auction of numbers. We just need to get people out. So I leave with one image. In the year that I was privileged to be the advisor to the Governor of Helmand, we opened girls' schools. And the joy it gave parents to see their little girls going to school was extraordinary, and I didn't understand it until I took my own daughter to school about a year ago. And there was a lot of crying when she first went in, but I got over it and it went okay. And I would love to see that continue. But there is a second image I must leave you with, and it is a harder one. It is the image of a man whose name I never knew, carrying a child who had died hours earlier, carrying this child into our firebase and begging for help. Now, there was nothing we could do. It was over. Because, Mr. Speaker, this is what defeat looks like. It's when you no longer have the choice of how to help. This doesn't need to be defeat, but at the moment, it damn well feels like it.
It sure does. And that's tough. And that was beautifully put by Tom Tugendhat. And if you were watching the show last night, you'll know that this one hit me hard too. That bloody pingdemic has now caused a wingdemic, with Nando's and KFCs up and down the country being shut down because of a shortage of chicken due to too many staff at factories isolating. Now, I knew the consequences to national life would be severe from the pingdemic, and we've now seen the proof. Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.